Where does the law stand? Because people are... I get that the police have got to do a job completely, but legally, what are we entitled to do if someone breaks into our home?
Well, thankfully, they're very rare. Of course, burglaries do take place, and the large majority of people don't confront the burglar. And I'd be very clear to say, if someone breaks into your house, do not confront them. Move yourself into a position, if you can, either away, out the house, or lock yourself in a room. And particularly when someone obviously breaks into a house with a weapon and in an unpredictable state. Many of the people who are committing burglaries may be high on drugs, they may be alcohol, there may be something that actually puts them into a different state. It is reasonable force. So what the law says is that you can protect both yourself and your property by using reasonable force. Of course, that's a very subjective matter.
Yeah, what is reasonable force?
Absolutely. Well, reasonable force in the simple application of it is someone breaks into your house and you restrain them in some manner. That reasonable force would allow you to do that. What it wouldn't allow you to do is then to start to hit them, to punch them, to get a knife involved or something like that and stab them. And of course it goes further than that, where reasonable force is in a position if the offender leaves the address. If you therefore chase that person and then do that person some harm, you wouldn't be in a position where you had a defence of reasonable force.
But Mark, I've got to say, I know you say, obviously, that police advice is if someone breaks into your home, you know, try and get out, or you don't, if they've got a weapon and stuff like that. With all due respect to that, if someone breaks into your home, your first thought is, I need to protect myself.
Absolutely.
I need to protect my family. If I've got children in the house, I know me and Emma were talking about this morning, and she said, obviously, the kids would be her first priority. If someone breaks into your house with a weapon, in my head, as a homeowner, in the middle of the night, it's me or them.
No,
and also, if they have a weapon, you assume they're there to use it.
I get that. And the first position I would do is go to the children. Go to wherever that risk is and stay with them. And therefore, then, if that person then comes and presents that risk to them, you are going to defend them. But of course, the reality is, thankfully, it doesn't happen to many people. When it does happen, of course, we've seen the example. It is then a matter down to the police and ultimately the Crown Prosecution Service.
And I understand the police and the Crown Prosecution Service. Unfortunately, someone has died here, and that's not great. It's terrible, but an investigation has to take place into that, and we totally appreciate that. But when it comes down to the law, with, you know, reasonable force and things like that, with all due respect, if someone breaks into someone else's property in the middle of the night, should their entitlements just be left literally at the front door? Yeah,
I mean, I think you break into someone's house and you are going to... The chances are you're going to meet some resistance from some people, and rightly so. Listen, let's make it very clear. You break into someone's house, you run the risk that there's going to be some force applied to you, and rightly so, that is. What we have to make sure is where that level of reasonable force stops before it becomes a muted-out punishment.
Obviously, this resonates quite heavy with you because you were involved with the Tony Martin case back in 1999 that we all remember. You know, two guys broke into his house and he had a shotgun and he shot one of them, a teenager died in it, and you've been campaigning for that ever since. He did get prosecuted for it.
That's right. I mean, I agree with Mark, funny enough, in most of probably everything he said, but it sounds, when you speak to the police, as though they think you can rehearse all this. How do you know how you're going to be affected if someone broke into your house? You could be terrified, run away, you could go completely hysterical. It's almost as though people are judging you on what you should do without you being pre-programmed to do it.
You never know what you're going to do in that situation, and you yourself were then burgled in 2004 as well.
The lady said to me earlier, do you mind if I tell them what you said? And I said in front of the police officers, if I had had a gun or something, I would have killed him. It wouldn't have bothered me at all, because you get this hatred,
this urge,
creeping,
this protection.
And one of the police officers, again, who didn't know my involvement with Tony, because it happened some time after that, said, oh, you've got to be careful, you'll end up like Tony Martin. With that attitude, the police showing the public, no wonder the public are up in arms. Well, I mean, it's ridiculous, the state of the policing at the moment.
One thing that when I was reading about the current law, one thing that stuck out to me was something that says you can protect yourself in the heat of the moment. This includes using an object as a weapon. And then that, in my mind, again, kind of makes it a grey area
It's muddy water,
because
isn't
you're
it?
being told, you know, don't. You know, they are in your house and they're breaking the law, but you need to abide by the law whilst they are breaking the law towards you.
Yeah, and it still boils down to reasonable force. You know, if you have a knife and I have a baton or something which can deflect the knife and remove the knife from you, that allows me in the legislation to be able to use that. If I then disarm you with the knife and then take the baton and start striking you multiple times, you become unconscious, and it's very different.
Mark's sounding a bit like the police there, as though, you know, it's all about, you've got to think about this, you've got to think about that, and you just don't.
You're not thinking about anything in that situation.
But I think you have to get a rational point. So say something happens in the street, there comes a point to which you have to have that cut off and go, do you know what, I've stopped it now, I'm not going to continue to beat this person.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about someone...
Well, even if they're in your house,
Mark,
I think there comes a point.
Look, I mean, we can't go into this case too much. As I said, it's an ongoing case.
So what if it were me? Say if I was at home, my husband was away, I had my 3 kids, somebody broke into my house and it was a man who was, you know,
going to
far
overpower
bigger than me,
you.
going to overpower me, has a weapon, you know, and I have a baseball bat.
Yeah.
I mean, in my head, I've never been in this situation, but in my head, I would do
Go for it.
whatever I had to do to protect my 3
When they
children.
come into houses in the light of day, you know,
Yeah.
and they know people are in there, they must be drugged up or something's wrong with them. They're a number one threat. And so whatever you do to that person to stop him, I think, you know, is OK.